How to grow big, beautiful monsteras, even if you're a beginner or living in a tiny space. Hey there, fellow plant lovers. Welcome back to Earthly Delights, the cozy corner of YouTube where we celebrate all things green, growing, and grounding. If you're someone who finds joy in the quiet magic of tending to a houseplant, if you've ever whispered sweet encouragements to your monstera, or felt a little thrill at the sight of a new leaf unfolding, then you, my friend, are in the right place. I know many of you are navigating busy lives in small apartments, juggling careers, family, and the chaos of the digital age. But somewhere in your heart, there's a longing for stillness, for beauty, for something real. That's why you've brought plants into your home. And today, we're going to deepen that connection. In this episode, I'm going to take you on a journey, not just to grow your monstera bigger and healthier, but to understand it, to really connect with it. Because growing a thriving plant isn't about having the perfect conditions, it's about tuning in, showing up, and learning the quiet language of leaves and roots. So grab your tea, settle into your favorite chair, and get ready to fall even more in love with your indoor jungle. And hey, if this sounds like your kind of vibe, don't forget to subscribe to Earthly Delights. This is just the beginning. Seedling. Why monstera? You know, out of all the houseplants we bring into our lives, the pothos, the fiddle leaves, the peace lilies, there's something about the monstera that captures the heart in a different way. Maybe it's those dramatic, hole-punched leaves that look like they belong in a tropical dream. Maybe it's how quickly it goes from a shy little plant to a wild, living sculpture reaching for the light. But for many of us, and maybe for you, too, the monstera is more than just decor. It's a symbol, a reminder that even in a small city apartment or a busy suburban home, we can create something lush, something alive, something that grows with us. Did you know the name Monstera deliciosa actually comes from two Latin words? Monstera refers to the monstrous size of the leaves, big, bold, and unapologetic. Deliciosa is because of the delicious fruit it bears in the wild. And just like its name, this plant is full of personality and surprises. And the best part? You don't need a green thumb or a garden. Even if you're a beginner, even if your past plants didn't make it, the monstera invites you to try again. It's resilient, forgiving, a little dramatic, sure, but always ready to grow, if you give it the right care. So whether you're just bringing home your very first monstera baby, or you've had one quietly thriving in your corner for a few years now, this journey is for you. In this series, we're not just learning plant care, we're building a relationship. And trust me, once your monstera starts stretching toward the light, putting out those majestic new leaves, you'll understand exactly why people fall head over heels for this beautiful beast of a plant. Now, let's set the stage for success, because where your monstera lives can change everything. Keep watching, we're just getting started. Setting your monstera up for success. Alright, so you've found your perfect monstera, maybe at a local nursery, maybe at a big box store, or maybe even adopted from a friend. You brought it home, placed it by the window, gave it some water, and waited. But here's the thing. To truly help your monstera thrive, you need more than enthusiasm. You need intention. And it starts the moment you bring that plant home. Let's rewind a little. If you haven't picked one out yet, here's something I wish someone had told me when I bought my first monstera. Start with the healthiest plant you can afford. I know the tiny ones are tempting, cute little pots, easy to carry, but if your dream is to grow a big, luscious monstera, go for the largest, healthiest plant your budget allows. Because here's the truth. Even the fastest growing indoor plants slow down inside our homes. Light, humidity, and space all affect growth. What might take months in a greenhouse can take years in a living room. So starting big gives you a beautiful head start. Now, when you're choosing your plant, don't be shy, get hands-on. Gently inspect the leaves for any signs of pests, spots, or damage. Turn the pot slightly and check if the roots are peeking through the drainage holes. That's often a sign of a healthy, active plant. If you can, check the base of the soil. Is it soggy? Does it smell off? These little clues can tell you a lot. And once you've brought your new green friend home, here's your first big decision. Where will it live? The spot you choose, the light, the airflow, the environment, will either support its growth or quietly hold it back. But don't worry, in the next chapter, we're going to talk all about light, the kind your Monstera loves. The signs it's not getting enough. And what to do if your space doesn't get perfect sunlight. You don't need a greenhouse. You just need to understand your space and your plant's needs, and that's exactly where we're headed next. Keep watching. Let's shine a little light on what really makes a Monstera grow. Sun. Location matters, light and space. Let's talk about something that can make or break your Monstera's happiness, light. Not too little, not too much, just the right kind. Kind of like how we all need balance in our lives. Right? I remember the first time I placed a Monstera in a dim corner of my living room. It looked cozy, sure, but after a few weeks, something wasn't right. The leaves stopped coming. The ones it did produce were small, a bit sad looking, and missing those iconic splits, those beautiful fenestrations we all love. It didn't take long to realize. My Monstera wasn't being dramatic, it was asking for light. You see, Monsteras are native to tropical forests where they grow beneath the canopy. Soaking up bright, indirect sunlight, that's their sweet spot. So in your home, placing them near a bright window, east or north facing, is ideal. Gives them that same gentle exposure without burning their delicate leaves. But don't panic if you live in a place with limited natural light or cloudy skies. Grow lights have come a long way. You don't need anything fancy, just a simple setup that mimics daylight. I've seen Monsteras come back to life under an inexpensive grow bulb and a little bit of love. Now, how do you know if your plant is asking for more light? Look at the new leaves. If they're smaller than the older ones, or if they're not splitting like before, that's your plant quietly saying, hey, I need more sunshine. And on the flip side, too much direct light, especially harsh afternoon sun, can burn the leaves, leaving crispy brown edges or faded patches. So it's a balance. Think bright, filtered light, like standing in a room with sheer curtains and soft morning sun. And while we're here, let's not forget space. As Monsteras grow, they need room to stretch. Those aerial roots will start looking for something to climb. The leaves? They'll get broader, bolder, and start taking up more visual space. So think ahead. Give your plant breathing room. Let it own its little corner of your world. Because once it settles into a spot with just the right light and enough space to grow, that's when the magic begins. Next, we'll go underground, quite literally, and explore what's happening with your Monstera's roots. Because just like in life, the things you can't see are often the ones that matter most. Stay with me, seedling. The root of the matter, soil and repotting. Now that we've found the perfect spot for your Monstera to bask and breathe, let's take a moment to talk about something far less glamorous, but far more important, the roots. Because here's the truth, while we tend to fall in love with the glossy leaves and dramatic growth above the soil, the real story is happening beneath the surface. Healthy roots are everything. They're the silent engine of your Monstera's life. And when we take the time to understand what they need, our plant rewards us in full, leafy glory. Let me tell you what I learned the hard way. I had a beautiful Monstera that suddenly stopped growing. It looked fine, maybe a little tired, but nothing obvious. One day, curiosity got the best of me. I gently slid it out of the pot, and there it was. A root-bound knot. The roots had nowhere left to go. They were circling tightly, dry and gasping for space. That's when I realized, above-ground beauty only lasts when below-ground health is prioritized. Monsteras, like many aroids, crave well-draining, airy soil. In their natural environment, they grow in the crevices of trees, where moisture comes and goes, and oxygen flows freely around their roots. So if you're using standard potting soil from a hardware store, which often retains too much water, you could be suffocating your plant without even realizing it. But don't worry, the fix is simple. Blend your own mix using equal parts potting soil, orchid bark, and perlite or pumice. Or, if mixing isn't your thing, there are great pre-made blends designed specifically for Monsteras. The key here is texture. When you squeeze a handful of your soil, it should fall apart loosely in your hand, not clump like wet clay. And what about repotting? Here's the golden rule. Don't jump too many pot sizes ahead. Monsteras like feeling a bit snug, but when the roots begin to peek out from the bottom, or growth slows without an obvious reason, that's your cue. Choose a pot just 1 to 2 sizes larger. And always make sure it has drainage holes. I love using clear nursery pots because they let me peek inside, like a window into the soul of the plant. You can see how moist the soil is, if the roots are happy, or if they're begging for a little more space. Repotting might feel intimidating the first time, but it's an act of renewal, not just for your Monstera, but for you too. It's a moment to pause, reset, and recommit to the care this beautiful green friend deserves. And once those roots have room to breathe, you'll be amazed at how quickly your Monstera responds. New leaves, bold growth. It's like the plant can finally stretch out after being curled up too long. In the next chapter, we'll help your Monstera go vertical, because when you give it something to climb, it'll reward you with size, structure, and those jaw-dropping jungle vibes you've been dreaming of. Let's grow up, literally. Leaf in wind, custom support systems, moss poles and cozy structures. Alright, now that your Monstera has strong roots and the perfect soil to stretch into, let's talk about how to help it truly rise. Because here's something most new plant parents don't realize right away. Monsteras aren't just houseplants, they're natural-born climbers. In the wild, Monsteras wrap their aerial roots around tree trunks, climbing upward in search of more light. It's part of their survival instinct, and that desire to climb doesn't go away just because they're sitting in a pot in your living room. So if you've ever noticed those long, stringy roots reaching out into the air, that's your Monstera sending a message: help me grow up. And trust me, once you give your plant something to cling to, everything changes. The leaves get bigger, the plant becomes more structured, and your home starts to feel less like a room with a plant, and more like a room in a rainforest. Now, let's talk support. You've got 3 main options: moss poles, wooden planks, and trellises. Moss poles are probably the most popular, and for good reason. They hold moisture, which encourages aerial roots to attach and drink. But they do need a little maintenance. You'll want to mist the pole regularly or keep it slightly damp so it stays inviting to those hungry roots. Wooden planks, on the other hand, are great for a clean, modern look. Over time, the roots will attach on their own, especially if the humidity is right. I've even used a simple piece of cedar I found at the hardware store. It worked beautifully. Then there are trellises, especially useful if you want to shape your Monstera or guide it in a certain direction, like up a wall or along a window frame. They're perfect if you're working with limited floor space but still want dramatic height. The method you choose isn't as important as simply giving your Monstera the option to climb. Just make sure the support is placed close to the main stem and gently secured. Zip ties, twine, even Velcro garden tape can work wonders. And here's a little secret I've learned over time. When you give a plant a structure, something to believe in, it finds its own way. It's a beautiful reminder, for plants and people alike, that with a little support, we can all grow taller than we thought possible. Coming up next, we'll dive into one of the trickiest parts of houseplant care: watering. It's not just about how much, it's about how well. And your Monstera has a rhythm all its own. Let's learn to listen. Droplet. The art of watering. Watering, it sounds simple, right? Just pour a little water into the pot every few days and call it a day. But if you've ever had a Monstera that suddenly started yellowing, drooping, or throwing a dramatic fit for no clear reason, chances are watering might be the hidden culprit. See, Monsteras don't like routines, not the way we do. They don't care if it's Sunday or Wednesday. They care if their soil is actually dry. And that's the mindset shift every plant parent needs to make. Watering isn't about a schedule, it's about observation. I remember when I used to water all my plants once a week. Like clockwork, it felt organized, responsible, until my Monstera started showing signs of stress. The leaves drooped, some turned yellow. It was trying to talk to me, and I wasn't listening. That's when I learned that watering is not an action, it's a relationship. So how do you know when your Monstera wants a drink? Use your senses. Stick your finger into the soil about an inch deep, if it's still moist. Wait a little longer, or try the chopstick method. Gently push one in, and if it comes out damp, you're good to hold off. If you're using a clear nursery pot, take a peek. You can often see the moisture levels and even the roots themselves. That's one of the reasons I swear by them. Now let's talk how. When you water, go slow. Give your Monstera a deep, thorough drink until water drains out the bottom. This ensures the entire root system gets hydration, not just the top layer. But never, and I mean never, let your plant sit in standing water. That's a shortcut to root rot. And nobody wants that heartbreak. You might be wondering, but what if I travel? What if I forget? Trust me, Monsteras are forgiving. In fact, they prefer slightly underwatered conditions over being soaked too often. They're tropical, but they don't like wet feet. And remember, seasons matter. During the warmer months, spring and summer, your Monstera will be thirstier. In fall and winter, it slows down, rests, and needs far less water. Tune in. Let the plant lead. Because when you start to water with mindfulness, not just out of habit, your Monstera responds in kind. The leaves perk up. The growth feels steady. It's almost like the plant is saying, "Thank you for listening." Next, we're going to talk about something your Monstera craves even more than water: food. Yes, these leafy beauties are hungry. And with the right nutrition, they'll reward you with their most spectacular growth yet. Let's feed that jungle energy. Fertilizing for foliage. By now, your Monstera has a cozy home, a steady light source, healthy roots, and a watering rhythm that flows with the seasons. But there's one more ingredient that unlocks the real magic of those lush, dramatic leaves. Food. Yes, just like us, Monsteras need fuel to grow, and not just any fuel, but the kind that feeds those giant fenestrated leaves and keeps them vibrant, strong, and ready to unfurl with confidence. I used to think fertilizing was optional. Nice to have. I imagined my potting mix was enough. But over time, I noticed something. My Monstera looked fine, but it wasn't thriving. The leaves stayed small, growth slowed, and that deep green glow began to fade. That's when I learned, potting soil is like a starter pack. But eventually, your plant uses up all the nutrients. And that's where fertilizer comes in. The growing season, typically spring through early fall, is the time when your Monstera is most active. New leaves, new roots, new height. During these months, your plant is in full-on creation mode, and it needs a steady supply of nutrients to support that energy. Start slow. I always recommend beginning with a half-strength dose of a balanced liquid fertilizer, especially if you're new to the process. Too much too soon can burn the roots and do more harm than good. Think of it like easing into a workout after a long break. Gentle, steady progress wins every time. As the weeks go on and your plant shows signs of hunger, like pale leaves or stalled growth, you can slowly increase the strength to match its needs. But once the cooler months roll in, it's time to ease off. Winter is your Monstera's time to rest. Unless you're seeing clear signs of new growth, let it take a break, no feeding needed. And here's where you can really make it personal. Some plant parents love organic options, like seaweed extract or worm tea, for a more natural touch. Others go with synthetic blends for precise control. The choice is yours. Just make sure it says, "for houseplants," and avoid anything too intense. Especially at first, fertilizing isn't just about leaf size or faster growth. It's a sign of partnership, a way of saying, "I see you, I know what you need, and I'm here to help you shine." And when your Monstera thanks you with a massive, beautifully split leaf, maybe even bigger than your face, you'll know exactly why this step matters. Up next, we'll dive into another piece of the care puzzle, one that's often overlooked but can make a world of difference: humidity, cleanliness, and those little rituals that transform plant care from a task into a source of joy. Let's get into the rhythm of care. Wind face, humidity, cleaning and care rituals. So, we've talked about soil, water, light, and food, the big essentials. But now, let's step into something softer, something more subtle, but just as powerful: atmosphere and attention. You see, caring for a Monstera, or any houseplant, isn't just about meeting basic needs. It's about creating an environment where it doesn't just survive, but thrives. And part of that is giving it the kind of conditions it evolved in. Which brings us to humidity. Monsteras are tropical by nature. In their native environments, the air is thick with moisture. And while they've adapted surprisingly well to our homes, they'll always be happiest in a space with a bit of humidity. If your home tends to be dry, especially during the winter or if you use heaters or AC often, your Monstera might show signs of stress, crispy edges, slow growth, or reluctant aerial roots. But don't worry, you don't need to turn your living room into a jungle sauna. A few simple tricks can help. Group your plants together to create a little microclimate. Use a pebble tray beneath the pot. Or, every few days, just give your Monstera a gentle misting, not just for the roots, but for the soul of the plant. And while you're misting, take a moment. Run your fingers along the leaves. Wipe away dust with a damp cloth. That dust may not seem like much, but it blocks the light, slows photosynthesis, and dulls the natural beauty of your plant. Cleaning isn't just cosmetic, it's essential care. For me, this has become a weekly ritual. Sunday mornings, a warm cup of tea in hand, I walk through my little indoor forest. I check in, mist, clean, whisper a few kind words. It's not just for the plants, it's for me, too. Because here's the truth. The more you tend to your plants with presence and attention, the more they give back. Not just in growth, but in grounding energy, in calm, in that feeling of being home. And sometimes, all it takes is a few quiet minutes with a leaf in your hand to remember what really matters. Care, connection, and a little bit of green magic. Next, we'll explore something deeper, the mindset of a Monstera parent. Because this journey isn't only about soil and light, it's about patience, transformation, and trust in the process. Let's go inward. Seedling. Mindset of a Monstera parent. Let's take a breath together. Because this chapter, is not about fertilizer ratios or repotting tips. It's about you, the one watching, the one caring, the one who's chosen, in this noisy, fast-moving world, to slow down and grow something green. Being a Monstera parent isn't just about following the rules. It's about forming a relationship, one that's quiet, patient, and rooted in trust. You water, you wait, you place your plant by the window and watch for signs. Sometimes nothing happens for weeks. Then, one morning, a new leaf begins to unfurl. Soft, curled, vulnerable, and in that moment, you feel it, the reward of care without expectation. Because plants don't grow on our timeline. They don't care about quick results or instant gratification. And maybe that's what makes them such powerful teachers. So many of us, especially those watching this, are seeking peace. A slower rhythm, something steady in a world that often feels out of sync. And the Monstera, with all its leafy drama and quiet persistence, offers just that. It invites you to pay attention, to show up even when you don't see results, to trust that something beautiful is happening beneath the surface. You'll make mistakes. Maybe you'll overwater. Maybe a leaf will yellow or drop. Maybe you'll repot too soon or too late. But guess what? That's okay. Your plant doesn't need perfection, it needs presence. And the more time you spend with it, wiping a leaf, checking for roots, celebrating that first fenestration, the more you start to realize you're growing. 2. You're becoming more patient, more observant, more in tune with the quiet cycles of life. So the next time you look at your Monstera, don't just see a plant, see a mirror, a reminder that growth can be slow, messy, unpredictable, and still completely, breathtakingly worth it. Coming up, we'll talk about the inevitable challenges, yellow leaves, stalled growth, drooping stems, and how to troubleshoot them with confidence and calm. You've got this, and your Monstera does, too. Common problems and how to fix them. Let's face it, even with the best care and the gentlest intentions, things can go a little sideways. A yellowing leaf, a stalled stem, a Monstera that just stops. If you've ever felt a pang of panic while staring at your plant and whispering, "What's wrong with you?" You're not alone. But here's the comforting truth. Most problems are simply the plant speaking in a language we're still learning. And once you understand a few of its favorite phrases, everything gets a lot less mysterious and a lot more manageable. Let's start with one of the most common worries, yellow leaves. If your Monstera is shedding a leaf here and there, especially older ones near the bottom, that's normal. Just like us, plants let go of what they no longer need. But if multiple leaves are turning yellow all at once, or if they're also mushy or limp, it could be a sign of overwatering. In that case, check the soil. Is it soggy? Does it smell off? Your roots might be asking for air, not water. On the other hand, if the leaves look dry, crispy, or curled at the edges, your Monstera might be underwatered or craving more humidity. You'll learn to feel the difference in the texture of the leaf itself. Dry and papery? Time for a good drink and a misting session. What about slow growth? It's easy to feel like your plant is stuck, especially during colder months. But remember, Monsteras naturally slow down in fall and winter. If the light is low and the temperature drops, your plant is simply resting. No need to panic. Don't force it with fertilizer or water. Just wait. Spring always comes back. Another common issue? Leggy growth. When the plant stretches out and the spaces between the leaves get wider. That's usually a lighting issue. Your Monstera is literally reaching for more sun. Try rotating it regularly, or moving it to a brighter spot. It will thank you with fuller, more compact growth. And then there's lack of fenestration, those gorgeous leaf holes we all love. If new leaves are coming in plain, don't worry, they often appear as the plant matures and gets the right balance of light, nutrition, and support. Patience is key here, and trust me, the first time your plant unfurls a fully split leaf, it feels like magic. Every problem is a doorway into deeper understanding. And every little adjustment you make, a new location, a better soil mix, a touch more patience, becomes a moment of connection. So don't be discouraged by the bumps along the way. They don't mean you're failing. They mean you're growing. And just like your Monstera, sometimes the most important changes are the ones happening quietly, just beneath the surface. In our next chapter, we're going to zoom out and dream big, transforming your green corner into a lush, thriving indoor jungle. Because this isn't just about plants anymore, it's about building your own little sanctuary. Leaf in wind. From green corner to indoor jungle. There's something magical that happens when one plant turns into two, then three, and suddenly you realize, this isn't just a hobby anymore. It's a lifestyle, a living landscape taking shape right inside your home. Maybe it started with a Monstera in the corner. Just one. Quiet, easy, full of promise. But then came a pothos, trailing from a shelf, a snake plant standing tall by the doorway. Before long, your space begins to change, and not just visually. The energy shifts, the air feels softer, the light dances differently through the leaves. You start to breathe a little deeper. You begin to look forward to mornings again. Turning your space into an indoor jungle isn't about having a giant home or fancy equipment. It's about intention, choosing to fill your environment with life. One rooted being at a time. It starts with grouping your plants together, creating little plant families that support each other through shared humidity and light. A corner becomes a canopy. A windowsill becomes a forest floor. You begin to think vertically, using shelves, wall brackets, trellises, even hanging pots to let your plants reach upward and outward like they're meant to. And the beauty is, no two jungles are the same. Yours might be lush and wild, with leaves overlapping and vines trailing freely. Or it might be calm and curated, a peaceful, green rhythm against white walls and warm wood. Whatever your aesthetic, your plant space becomes a reflection of your spirit. A place that grows with you. A place that feels like you. And it's not just about the visuals. Studies show that being surrounded by greenery improves focus, reduces stress, and lifts our mood. But honestly, you don't need science to tell you that. You can feel it every time you walk into the room and see that new leaf unfurling. It's the quiet kind of joy, the steady kind. So as you grow your Monstera, and maybe bring in a few more plant friends, let it be more than decoration. Let it be a declaration that in a world that moves fast and asks so much of you, you choose something slow, something alive, something green. And don't worry, your jungle doesn't have to be big to be beautiful. Even a single plant, loved well, can transform a space. Coming up next, if you live in a small space, a studio apartment, a tiny balcony, or a single windowsill, don't worry, you can still grow something spectacular. Let's explore the simple tricks that make big growth possible in small places. Herb, bonus, small space? No problem. Let's be honest, not all of us have sun-drenched living rooms or big airy lofts with space for towering plants. Maybe you're in a tiny apartment, a student dorm, or a compact city flat where every square inch matters. But here's the beautiful truth. You don't need a mansion to create magic. You just need a little creativity and a lot of heart. Small spaces can actually be the most inspiring. Why? Because they invite intention. They ask you to think vertically, to get smart with placement, and to curate a space that feels alive without feeling crowded. Think about corners, those overlooked little wedges of space. A monstera trained on a moss pole can stand tall in a corner, making a statement without taking over the whole room. Or floating shelves, perfect for trailing vines like pothos or philodendron, adding layers of greenery up your wall. And what about window sills? South or east-facing windows are prime real estate. Use stackable risers to create tiered plant stands. You'd be amazed at how many plants you can fit in a single window with the right setup. It's like your own vertical jungle canopy. Hanging planters are your secret weapon. Use the ceiling, macrame holders, wall-mounted pots, even a simple hook and chain. Suddenly, your plants are floating in midair, catching the light, cascading down like leafy waterfalls. And don't underestimate the power of a single well-loved plant. One vibrant monstera, placed thoughtfully, can bring more life to a room than a dozen scattered, neglected ones. Small space gardening isn't about limitation. It's about innovation. It's about finding joy in the little things. A new root peeking out, a leaf turning toward the light, the way a green corner softens a hard day. So if you've been holding back, thinking, I just don't have room, I hope this is your permission to begin. Start with one plant, then maybe two. Let your space evolve naturally, because even the tiniest windowsill can become a sanctuary. And in our final chapter, we're going to zoom out one last time to reflect on what this whole journey really means. It's not just about monsteras. It's about life, growth, and the quiet power of care. Person in lotus position, plants as life teachers. And now, here we are, at the end of our journey, or maybe the beginning of yours. Because if you've made it this far, you already know. This wasn't just a video about monstera care. It was about something deeper, something quieter, something that grows slowly but surely, just beneath the surface, like roots weaving through soil. Caring for a plant teaches you things the world forgets to remind you of. That it's okay to grow at your own pace. That rest is not the opposite of progress, it's part of it. That change doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes, it's just a new leaf, silently unfolding in the early light. Your monstera doesn't judge, it doesn't rush, it doesn't compete, it just is, reaching for the sun, adjusting to the seasons, holding on through droughts and flourishing with care. And maybe, in some way, that's what you're learning to do too. So whether your monstera is tall and thriving or still finding its footing, whether you live in a house full of plants or are nurturing your very first leaf, you are doing something beautiful. You are participating in life, in slowness, in growth, and that matters. If this video brought you peace, clarity, or inspiration, I'd love for you to join our little plant-loving community here at Earthly Delights. Subscribe, leave a comment, share your own monstera journey, your challenges, your wins, your growth, because plants may root in soil, but people root in connection. Thank you for spending this time with me. Keep growing, keep reaching, and above all, keep tending gently, both to your plants and to yourself. Until next time, herb.